Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today guys, we're going to be taking a look at the process of build making and kind of what people go through to test things, how they determine if something's going to be a viable option or not so viable option, and just go through that process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the process of making a character, and I'm going to start from scratch. So that's why we're here in the character creation screen, is to go through the process, making a test character, putting them together with gear, traits, enchants, you name it, the whole works. We're going to go through the whole process. I'm going to name it, and I'm actually going to put this build video out for you guys so you guys can see the process. So alright, first off, we are on PTS, and this is where most people do their testing because you have access to a lot of different things. So we're going to go ahead and pick Wrathstone. This is going to allow us to make a max level character. And what we're going to do is we're just going to pick a race based on what we're trying to make. So in this case, I'm going to make a stamina DPS. Now, we know right now the Orc is the best race for, like, people who are running scoreboard or leaderboard trials. Orc is going to be the one that most people use for stamina DPS, and that's because they get the 2000 max stam, they get 1000 health, they get 258 weapon damage, and that's pretty much it. It has nothing to do with resource management or anything like that, because there's a lot of different foods you can use to give you what you need to stay sustainable. So that's if your group isn't given enough synergies or things like that. So, and even in most cases, you still need the sustainability. But for this, we're going to do a test that's going to allow us to test other races, to see how other races do. And in this case, we're actually going to go with Khajiit. Just because I think it'd be cool. Class-wise, since I'm still working on Templars, I'm going to leave it with Templar. We're just going to adjust this here. I like to do a little tinkering with this just to give it some different looks and stuff like that. So we're going to go with this. That looks good. And go over here. I'm not even going to worry about changing the body markings. We're going to change the hair color though to black. And then we're going to change the hairstyle to something. Let's go with that. We'll just go with the dreads there. We're going to change the adornments out, and we're going to just put the face right in the middle like that. There we go. And because this is a Templar, I want to give it something, a name usually that will fit the kind of build design that I'm working on. So in this case, we're going to call it Lights. Oops. Guardian. So we're going to call it Lights Guardian, mainly because it's a Templar. And then we're just going to click Create. We're going to skip the tutorial. Name is already used. This isn't. It never is. Sorry for coughing, guys. I'm still trying to get over this chest infection, whatever it is I have. It's pretty sad when you go to the doctors and they don't even know what it is. They're just like, oh, it's a virus. You're like, okay. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go through the whole process. Gear choices. I've already made my decisions on what gear I want to use for this build, because this is going to be an advanced build. So this is going to be a build that goes between dungeons and trials, and it's basically one that you're going to use for dungeon play and then for trials. So it's going to be an advanced build, but not quite a trials build. So we're not going to be using advancing Reliquant or advancing, or perfect Reliquant or advancing Yodokai on this build. Alright, first things first, I gotta do some settings stuff here, because otherwise I'm gonna get really bothered by some of these things. Mainly because I use a large button mouse, and I don't like to be in the middle of testing and hit the button and all of a sudden my character starts auto-walking. Alright, so there we go. That's all I do. Besides, move this out of the way. And we're going to go ahead and do this because I hate having any icons flashing or whatever. Call it a OCD thing or a pet peeve. And we're just going to go right to my house, and we're going to start doing this. We're going to get the gear set up. We're going to do the whole process. Skills, you name it. But the reason I want you guys to see this process is so you guys can see for yourselves. Like, there is a formula to all builds. It really doesn't matter. There's always going to be some kind of formula that you want to follow that's going to give you like the best results, or it's going to give you the best outcome, that kind of thing. Now, this particular build, I'm not using any crafted sets, and that's because it was a build that I tested last update during Murkmire for another class, and I wanted to see how it would work out on Templar. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk over here to the crafting stuff, and I'm going to do some real quick adjustments to a few things really quick. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and do the skills, get them out of the way. And this just will allow me to craft the gear to gold without any problems. And provisioning Gourmand, or Gourmand and Carnosaur, of course, is because I always unlock those for the purpose of the tests. And if I need to make any enchants, you guys get the idea. Alright, let's go ahead and just get through this real quick. I do apologize for this being a lengthy thing, but... And I am going to do a full test on this, including a parse, just so you guys can see for yourselves. When the last time I tested this build, I pulled almost 30... I think it was 36k, and that was on a Nightblade. So... Excuse me, don't mean to cough. Trying not to. Alright, don't need any of that. Donning. Psijic order here, because I do want to use the Psijic ability. Alright, let's grab crushing weapon. I need to move that over. And Mage's Guild. Fighter's Guild. Now, a lot of people are going to question why I'm not going to use Rearming Trap. I'm not using Rearming Trap for one purpose only. I know why a lot of people do use a Rearming Trap, and they'll put it on both bars. It's so that you can get some extra weapon damage on your bars for the purpose of damage. So a lot of times you'll see people to take like Rearming Trap, they'll put it on the front bar and the back bar right now, and that's to build up your weapon damage. So. Also, I apologize for my extremely loud furnace. And if you guys are wondering what I'm doing, I'm just unlocking, like I said, the skills that I know I'll be using for the build. So, and it's just for the purpose of testing. That's it. Now, like I said, on a Nightblade, I actually pulled higher DPS than what I probably will pull on the Templar. But that was because in the last PTS cycle, I did it with the, oh my god. I'll give me a sec, guys. In the PTS that I tested it on, it was during the... Murkmire. That's it. I gotta get all my weapon skills and everything here. So we're gonna go back to dual wield because I want to get this front bar done. So slashes, deadly cloak, shrouded daggers. Is that it? Yep. Adric spear, lighting jabs, Bones wraith. And only need one of these. Alright, so we got all the skills set up. And this is just, like I said, this is just to test the build to see how well it'll pull off a DPS rotation. And pretty much to get a general idea of it. So, the other thing I want to do, so I'm going to take all 64 points in the stamina. We got this done. Now we're going to go ahead and do the gear stuff. It really doesn't matter how you do this, or what if you choose to do this part here with the riding skills. The only reason why I do it is so I have room, just in case something doesn't work with a particular build or something like that. I like to make sure I have a little bit of space, because otherwise my inventory will fill up really fast. So yeah, I just do it all. I do all the riding skill stuff. It's just a habit when you do this all the time, because you never know, like I said, how a set's going to work out. So you might want to go try a crafted set or something else. But in this case, we're just using 2 sets. And we'll see how this works out. And a monster set. So, gonna grab a monster set. We're gonna go ahead and grab. I'm gonna use for this. I'm gonna go ahead and use Veladriths, even though I normally wouldn't. I would try something else, because Veladriths isn't an easy set to get a hold of. A lot of people will say that it's fairly easy, but I feel like it isn't. I feel like it's one of the harder sets to get, mainly because of its where it is located and in what content that is. So, all right, now that we got our monster set, let's go ahead and get our other 2 sets that I want to test this with. So both of them are medium overland sets. We're going to start with the main set, which is, I don't know if it'll be in here. There it is. We'll be using Briarheart, and we're going to be using Griffins for this. The reason for this is because Briarheart is a very powerful set when it comes to a stamina DPS. A lot of people don't realize how good this set can actually be. So we're going to wear this on the 5 body, and then we're going to do the weapons and stuff in the Griffin and the jewelry. So, and we're not going to do the full weapons, we're only doing dual wield. So what we're going to do is we're just going to grab dual daggers, because that's pretty much the most common right now for most people, is the dagger setup. So grabbing the Griffins, jewelry. Now we got that out of the way. Go down here and think for a second. I need to change some enchants. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to look in and see where my stats are at with the enchants and food when I get everything finally set in place. So I'm going to go ahead and do my CP as well. I don't remember what this is supposed to be. I think it's 56. always think, remember there's always one left over, and I just usually dump it there. Which I think we have to do this a little differently because the new changes. Let's see what we need to get to. Is it 48? It might be 48 there. And I think it's 48 here as well. So we have to get this really high. Yeah, that's it. So. Alright. So we're looking at 29k stamina right now. We're going to go ahead and enchant or upgrade all of our gear. Improve it. I do need to get one other thing because I want to have at least a maelstrom bow to test this. And I need to do the jewelry enchants and everything. Like, I need to readjust everything. Alright. So, ability, altering weapons. Maelstrom. Maelstrom bow. And this is out the door, guys. This is 58% crit. Is pretty good out the door. That's without anything. We aren't going to be using the Lover Mundus. We're actually going to be using the Thief Mundus. I know a lot of people will be like, the Shadow would be better. The reason I'm not going to use the Shadow is because the Shadow makes you lose quite a bit of stuff. So then I'm going to readjust all my other equipment here. Let's go in here. We're going to make this Nernhoned. And sharpened. And then we're going to swamp. We're going to go over here to the jewelry. Start with the necklace. I can't believe I'm going to go... Actually, I'm going to go my normal route. I'm going to go in Bloodthirsty and then 2 Infused. I need to go out here real quick and do this. Let's go ahead and grab our food too. I'm going to grab the Dubious Cameron Throne. Now, usually you can use the Artaeum Takeaway Broth if you craft it. Artaeum Takeaway Broth is going to be the better choice for this because you do end up with a little bit more in stats. Not by much, but you do pull ahead a little bit. So, there we go. 16k health, almost 17k with 30k stamina. That's not bad. Let's see what our recovery is looking at. Way too high, so we need to... I forgot to do the jewelry enchants. Let's do those real quick. So we're going to go through here. We're just going to grab the 3 weapon ones, the physical harm. Enchant these. And then I need to do the weapon enchants as well. So 1230, it's not bad. And then we need to do the weapon enchantments like I said. We need a weapon damage. We need an absorbed stamina, and we need a poison. So, doesn't matter how you have these enchantments. You can set these ones up pretty much how you want them. And then this one should always be the Berserker. So here we are, 62% crit. We have a 3,663 weapon damage. We do have the wrong potions. I need to grab the right ones. I'm so used to making tanks that I just grab the potion. So we need the warrior pots. These are going to give us weapon damage. They're going to kind of mimic the live server potions, power potions. And the reason I chose the Khajiit for this is because the Khajiit already gets the 10% damage. So I didn't want to use the Shadow Mundus. I figured using the Thief Mundus giving us a lot of extra crit would be better. Especially the fact that it takes us up to 62%, up from 58. And 57 on the back bar. So, alright. Now that that's all done, and everything we have is, I want to make sure everything we have is golded out. So, gold, 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 gold. Alright. We have a 30k stamina. What we're going to do is we're just going to do a quick parse test on this one, the Persecutor, just to get a general idea of how things are working out with this build. And if it's something that's going to be worthwhile. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this. I'm just going to do the Alright, so we pulled 29k on this, which it isn't an accurate representation, guys. If I can pull 29k in a parse, in a live experience, I'm gonna pull closer to 30 to 30. You gotta basically add about 5 to 10 more k, depending on your rotation capabilities. So in this case, I would do closer. Now I know I would do closer to like 34k on a boss in a dungeon. So now we're gonna go over here to the 3 million dummy, and we're gonna do a full parse again. But this time we're actually gonna use our pots and everything. So that was without pots. That was just to get the rotation idea down. So we're going to start with drinking our pot. I'm going to do this. Crushing weapon. Oops. 1, 2. Oh, come on. I don't think I got that crushing weapon to go off. So let's do it this time. There we go. I'm going to heavy attack here just so I can get some extra resources. Heavy attack again. Because we're running low on resources, and you never want to run low on resources with the rotation. So come on, do your Dawnbreaker. There we go. So now we did 24k. So 24k DPS on a rotation on a 3 million is more or less to the bosses into a the end boss in a dungeon. most bosses in a dungeon have, especially in bosses or certain bosses, named bosses in dungeons, will have like 4 to 8 million health, depending on the type of dungeon you're playing in. So this is more of an accurate reading on the amount of damage you would do in that scenario. Now we can go up here and we can actually parse test this and see what our damage is. Now our damage is going to be very close to this, about 24k on the 6 million. It might drop to about 21 to 22, and I know what a lot of people are thinking, but that's not enough DPS. But you have to understand, I also don't have synergies coming in, which will help me sustain better, and I don't have major breach and major fracture from a tank. If I had all this stuff going on, I would actually get greater DPS. I'd probably reach closer to 30k, 34k even, almost about 10k more, even with this particular setup. But if let's just go ahead and take a look here at our parse. Okay, why isn't this showing up here? Really? Like it didn't even calculate the correct parse. Oh, I guess it would help if it was set to damage. No? Combat log? No? There we go, damage caused. So, as you can see, 7,213 physical pin is what we had. We had 5,566 weapon damage, 72% crit, 80% critical damage, or 88%. Endless Hail wasn't doing too bad of damage. Biting Jabs wasn't doing too bad. Light attacks, not too bad again. But you have to remember, this isn't running Advancing Yodokai or Perfect Reliquant, which in those sets I would actually have 31k stamina in that setup. So 30, 31, so about the same as what I do now, but I would also be using that Veladritz. Weapon damage would be similar, but my critical damage would be the same. I'd probably be using the Shadow Mundus, so which would boost my critical damage, but my weapon crit would probably be somewhere around the same, about 70-72%. Let's see over here what we had going on. It's not too bad. Let's finish looking through this. So, Power of the Light wasn't doing a great amount of damage, but it did do damage. Light attacks were doing not too bad. Again, it just depends on which one you look at. The poison injection, rending slashes, shrouded dagger, burning light went off a few times. It looks like, so about 10 out of 15 times. Then we can go out of here, look in the poison and weapon enchant. That went off 18 times. On crits, it went off 23 in total. Let's see, absorb stamina went off 23 times. It's funny, poison, I poisoned the enemy 24 times with poison injection and poison weapon enchant, so it's not too bad. Flawless Dawnbreaker kind of sucked. But yeah, this would be more of an advanced build. Like I said, this would be a build that you would use to get into trials. This wouldn't be something you'd use to do dungeons necessarily with. Or not dungeons, but trials. You wouldn't run trials with this all the time. Like, you wouldn't sit there and just run trials. You would use this to farm out like Perfect Reliquant and Advancing Yodokai. And then once you had those sets, these sets would become pretty much like garbage. That you wouldn't use the Briarheart or the Griffin stuff anymore. So, and it looks like I did miss a set piece there on the Briarheart, which might actually just change things a little bit on our rotation. I mean, it won't be nothing big because we're talking about one piece of Briarheart and getting the full benefits of it. So let's see what that did. Yeah, see, it didn't change anything really. Everything stayed pretty much the same and everything. So, but you also have to understand as well, I'm not that good with DPS. I just kind of went, I want to try this because I tried this during Murkmire and everything. Now you have to understand, I don't have major force or minor force from Trap Beast. I actually have minor force from my gear set that I'm using, the Griffin set. This is where I'm getting my stuff, because after I deal direct damage, I gain minor force. And we can actually look in here to see how often minor force was up. Minor force was up 62% of the time. It fired off 55%. So it was mostly when I was on the front bar that it was going off. It wasn't going off on the back bar. So a better idea for this setup would actually be wearing Briarheart on the jewelry and the weapons, and then using the griffins on the main. So this way you would get all the benefits from that. Now the nice thing about Briarhearts is anytime you deal critical damage, you have a 10% chance to increase your weapon damage by 4,409 or 449 for 10 seconds. This effect can occur, this effect is active. Your critical strikes heal you for 609 health. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. So there's 5 seconds in that 10-second window where this will not be going off, but it's still a really good set to use in combination with the Griffin set because of the way Griffin works. Griffin gives you critical weapon damage, all that stuff. So that's why our weapon damage is actually really high here, is because we get a little bit of weapon damage from this, we get weapon damage from this, and then from here we just get the max stam, but we still get 4 things of max critical. So this gives us on the 2 and 4 piece max crit, or weapon crit, sorry, and this gives us weapon crit on the 2 and 3 piece, and then the weapon damage. Another thing you could do is you could change this out, or leave this here, but move it up, and then put Hunting's Rage here. And Griffins and Hunting's Rage, or Griffins, Hunting's Rage, or Hunting's Rage and Briarheart are really good combinations. Even using Night Mother's Gaze with Briarheart is a good combination. Using the Kvetch's Gladiator is a good combination, especially if you're going for more of that below 25%. You want to get as much damage out as possible, so it would work very similar to like Bloodthirsty does with an Execute. So, or get within Execute range. So this one, you increase the damage against enemies under 25% by 10%, and if you have the Kvetch's Gladiator, that'll give you 1800 weapon damage when the enemy's below 25% health, which gives you a lot more weapon damage against your light and heavy attacks. So your light and heavy attacks are going to do a lot more damage when you get to that section, along with the other weapon damage. So it's really up to you. I mean, there's a lot of combinations that you can use for this particular setup to get the highest amount of damage possible. Now, if you guys are wondering how I could set up this build so fast and I could do the CP and everything so fast, is because, like I said, there is a formula to everything in this game. And no matter how you play, there's always going to be a formula in how you want your stats to look. In most cases, I like to keep my max stamina usually around 32 with an 18 to 20k max health. Now you got to remember, if I have Eben, I'll be at 17, 18k health, just about. If I have minor toughness on me, I'll be at 20k health. If I have Warhorn on me, I will be over 32k max stamina. So in this case, I'm still reaching that formula that I like to reach of 20-32. It's just, it requires me to have access to other things. If I did not have access to those things, what I would do is I would just switch over in my food here to either, and I know a lot of people will make comments about this, and say, why use the Tri-Stat food? Because Tri-Stat food is actually a lot cheaper in some cases than even blue food. So you can get Tri-Stat food for about the same. So here's what it looks like with this character with blue food. I have a 19k health with a 32k stamina. This would be perfect if I was running with somebody who had no minor toughness. But the thing is that I lose a lot of stam recovery, so I have to rely more on synergies and potions. If I'm using Tri-Stat food, I go to almost 18k health with 31k stamina. So I'm still within that range, but I get 16k magicka, which I really don't need in this situation. So it's a lot better to go with blue food or dual stat purple food like Dubious Cameron Throne or even Artaeum Takeaway Broth. This way I get the extra health recovery, I get the extra stam recovery from the Artaeum Takeaway Broth in that sense. If I was doing this in a magicka build, I would want to use Witch Mother's Potent Brew or the citrus, the clockwork citrus fillet, which is a gold food that's similar to Witch Mother's Brew, and Witch Mother's is just the opposite of Dubious. So in Witch Mother's you get Max Magicka, Max Health, and Mag Recovery, where in Dubious you get Stam Recovery, Max Stam, and Health. And then in Arcanum Takeaway Broth you get Stam Recovery, Max Stam, Health Recovery, Max Health. And then with the Clockwork Citrus Fillet, you get Magic Recovery, Max Magicka, Health Recovery, Max Health. So you get a little bit more on those. And it really just comes down to a preference in how you choose to play. I like using 2-hour food if I'm doing a trial, because I hate having to keep an eye on my food activity. So I like to use more purple food. So most of the time I will use like this in a trial, basically because I know I'm going to lose a little bit of stamina and I gain magicka, which I don't need, but it's mainly so I can get that higher stat pool, because the purple tri-stat food actually gives you more stats than the Dubious Cameron Throne. The problem is that you still end up with a low thing. Now, if I'm comfortable playing a build in a dungeon or a trial, I will use Dubious Cameron Throne. And if I am having trouble, with not sustaining but keeping my health up and stuff, what I will do, in some cases, and this is what a lot of people will do too, even running Dubious Cameron Throne, is we will take, on armor enchantments, we will take 3 prismatic or tri-stat glyphs and put it on our helm, our chest, and our legs, and then we'll run blue stat food, or we'll still run the Dubious Cameron Throne so we can get the high recovery. But this is just to push our health higher. So like if I was with somebody that was running Ebon, I would almost be at 20k health if we don't have minor toughness in the group. So this is something I might do. I know I lose some max stam, which is fine. I'm not really super concerned about that. What I'm more concerned about is having a good health pool for survivability and having a good recovery. Damage is, it's still going to be a pretty decent damage pool with this. I'll just show you guys on this. Now remember, when I parse on this, it's going to be about 4k less than what I get on a actual dummy. So we're going to do the full works here. We're going to do the potion, we're going to do this, we're going to do the whole works here. So 30k with that, and that's with using the dual stat, or that's with using Dubious Cameron Throne with the tri-stats on my thing. I actually did more damage with that than I did with the first time. So, and that's because, not because of sustainability issues or anything, that's because I was actually using food this time, or drink. If I change this back to stamina, and I do a parse again, it'll actually be more because I'm actually using the potion, because the first time I did the parse on this thing I didn't use a potion. So now if I use a potion, you guys will see I actually get I actually got 32k DPS that time. So about on this dummy over here, I'm gonna do with the 1, I will do about the same as what I did before on this dummy. So I'll do about the same damage on this and about 2k less on this one. So you have to understand, like with each dummy parse, your DPS is gonna change depending. Now if I had a full raid group, we would parse on this. So this way we could get an idea of what the full group's DPS with synergies, all that kind of stuff. And we do a full parse on this to get that, to see, hey, how well can we take this boss out? How long is it going to take us? How much DPS is everyone doing, so everyone can record their DPS together. That's what this parsing skeleton is for, actually, is for training on the trial bosses, so you can take them out in trial, hardcore mode, and veteran mode. And then this is for, like I said, this is basically like bosses, dungeon bosses is how I treat that one. This I treat as more or less on trial bosses that are below, like the lower health trial bosses. And then this one I use for in-game trial boss parses, for that kind of stuff. But I know the numbers so well that I can tell you, like, from this one to this one to that one, what I'll get in DPS. So from this one I'll do 32k. This will do about 28, 29k. Maybe a little less, maybe 24. And then just depends on the rotation. And then this one here will do about 2k less than that one. And that's because you're talking about a thing with a lot more health and everything. So, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of show you guys what the process is for testing builds, and how we testers, how we go about testing things, and how we determine what's going to be the best results for that particular build. So this is the Light Guardian DPS build. I will do a full coverage video on this build, but I wanted to build it while I showed you guys it in the process, so I can show you, like, this is what I do to test everything, to get the general idea of what I want the build to do, how I want it to work, what skills I want it to have, everything like that, and if it's going to be effective. Now in this case, because of the DPS that this thing can pull, this would be effective in trials, in normal mode, and even in veteran in most cases. Now in hard mode, I would maybe maybe the Craglorn trials would be viable with this. The later trials, like Maw of Lorcaj, would be viable in hard mode with this build. And this build probably could do hard mode Halls of Fabrication. But the other two that come after it, this Vet CR, Cloud Rest, and the Vet Asylum Sanctorium, I would probably, like, for Vet, you could probably do it with this build, but to do it in the trial, like hard mode trial, I wouldn't even attempt it. Normal, you could easily do it with this build, but veteran would be iffy on those two, and hard mode would be iffy on those two, because those things have some weird mechanics to them that do require you to have a little bit more. But yeah, this is basically what I do, how I would test a build, and how I would see how well it would do in a trial dungeon build situation. And I would be like, okay, this is going to work for this in this aptitude, this will work, but could I do better? And you can always do better with other sets. So, and this is running Veladrith's, Briarheart, and Griffin. The Griffin would be better to wear on the body than the Briarheart. Briarheart would be better back here, because Briarheart has a 10-second timer, where this has a 3-second timer for the Minor Force and Minor Expedition. So having this on the front bar would be better. And in the case of playing an Orc versus a Khajiit versus a Redguard versus a Wood Elf, versus Imperial, or even Nord, any one of those would be good for this build. They would work fine. The race would. The best one overall would be Orc for damage purposes. Dark Elf would be second. Then I would probably say Wood Elf and Redguard side by side, with Khajiit pulling up right behind them, and then Imperial and Nord behind that. But Imperial and Nord still fit in there really well. They would probably, and I say, when I say right behind them, all of these would be so close within each other, it wouldn't be funny. So even with the Khajiit versus the Orc, the difference would be probably 700-800, maybe 1,000 damage in some situations or some cases, but that'd be few and far between where it'd be 1,000. Most of the time it'd be 700-800 points in damage difference between the Khajiit and the Orc. And that's, to me, is not enough of a difference to say, well, Orc is the best. To me, I think any of the stamina races would work fine. Even an Argonian in this build, which is what I tested with, one of the races I tested with originally, I could still pull on a on this, on the 6 million, I could pull about 20. I think it was 23,000 DPS on this. So you got to remember, in a group or trial setting with good rotation, with a good resource management, like better resource management than what you normally would have, an Argonian will actually out-parse some races because of the fact they have really good sustain with the potion passive. And it's not phenomenal sustain. They work better as tanks because tanks aren't going through resources as fast as DPS. So, but if you have synergies, you have potions, you have good, decent stamina recovery, you can actually pull off sustaining on an Argonian pretty well. So, but that's pretty much the build, the Lights Guardian, guys. Like I said, this is just to show you guys what you can do with pretty much, I mean, any gear sets you use in combination with each other will give you good results to some degree. It just depends. Like, I could change some of these sets. Like, I could change Briarheart. I could change Briarheart for Griffins and then change the jewelry and weapons to, say, even Twiceborn Star, and still get about the same results as what I'm getting now, if not a little bit better, because I could use like the Warrior Mundus Stone, I could use the Shadow Mundus Stone, I could use the Thief and the one that gives me max stamina, or I could use the Thief and Warrior with it, and that's going to give me a better turnout in the end for DPS if I was using the Twiceborn Star and stuff, because I could push my crit with that. Now, my crit would be lower than what it is now. It would be somewhere in the 50 range. So with using that, because I would lose crit from the 2-piece crit. But then there's other sets that you could use as well. You could use the Automaton set. You could use the Sword Dancer, I think it is, the one where you can use dual wield and you get 400 weapon damage. You could use that on the back bar, or on the front, sorry, on the front bar on the jewelry and dual wield. So when you switch, you would lose the 400 weapon damage anyways to dual wield abilities, so you wouldn't need it when you switch to the bow. But if you're using that, even with the Briarheart, in combination with Briarheart, that combination would be really good. It'd be powerful, but it wouldn't be insanely overpowered to the degree of some other combinations. But then there's other things. You could even use Sword Singer with a two-handed weapon, with a bow, and then use it with a master or a Maelstrom bow, and you could use it, you know, or even a master's bow, either one, and in different combinations of skills and things like that. You can still pull decent DPS. I mean, we're talking viable DPS to clear veteran dungeons, not viable DPS to score or to get scoreboard on a trial or a dungeon or whatever. Those require very specific setups and very specific group dynamics to pull the best scores. And that's where a lot of people look at in game and they go, oh well, I want to join one of these really high end guilds that are running scores. And that's where everyone will be an orc, everyone will be a Nightblade, stamina Nightblade, and when it comes to Magicka DPS, there might be a different variation in there, but a lot of times pretty much everyone will be running the same builds. And even though the game has the option for, I forget what it is, the total is now, but it's over 6 million different builds in this game that are viable, not only for dungeons, but also for trials. Because it's, when you look at the overall thing of the character and the stats and everything, anyone can reach these values. Anyone. Any race can reach these values. If this was an Argonian, I'd have 29,000 max stamina, but I'd have more in health, so I wouldn't have to worry, because I'd have 17k health. I'd have 12k max Magicka, and I'd have the 29k stamina, but I'd still be viable for this build, even as an Argonian. In a lot of cases, what I might do if I was an Argonian is I might change to the Warrior Mundus, drop the Thief, go to the Warrior Mundus so I can get the higher weapon damage, and change out the one of the jewelry or two of the jewelry to from the infused to robust so I can get the higher stamina. That way I'll get around 31k max stamina as an Argonian, and I can still pull off this build as an Argonian and still have 1,000 something stamina recovery and everything. It's crazy. Like, there's so many different options in this game in how you can put together a build that's going to be viable. I'm not talking leaderboard, scoreboard, best runs builds. I'm talking viable for end game. I'm talking can complete normal and veteran dungeons, possibly even most hard mode dungeons and trials in normal, veteran, and hard mode. Dungeons, the DLC one, the base game ones are pretty easy. It's the DLC ones that become harder, and that's where having higher DPS, having the better rotations and all that stuff is really important. But we're talking about a build that is running Orsinium gear, Somerset, which are both really not that difficult of content to get those sets. And then Veladrets. Veladrets might be hard to get, but you could run Selines with this. You could run Stormfist with this. Heck, you could even run Vulcan Scoria with this and still score a decent amount of DPS in a dungeon or trial that would be viable for running end game. But I would still suggest, even if I was a player, I would still just suggest getting like perfect the Reliquin, at least getting basic Reliquin or getting perfect Reliquin. I would definitely refer to getting those as some sets, along with the advancing Yodokai and switching to using the trap beasts and stuff instead of the Griffins. The only reason why I chose Griffins is because there's a lot of people that find a lot of sets that are not very usable. And so trying to find a way to make them usable and effective is going to be really good for anyone, because it shows that, hey, okay, I can use this and I can be viable for end game in this situation. I won't be the best, but I can still be viable enough to help my group, my guild, start doing this trial, and I can actually play it because this build is built this way for this purpose. So, and there is, like I said, there's a few hundred different combinations that you could use. So, I mean, more than a few hundred. There's a few million combinations you could use. But that's pretty much it, guys. I didn't want to make this video too long, but I did want to show you guys the process of how things are determined, how we look at things, how we test sets, all that different kind of stuff, so you guys can see for yourselves. So, but that's pretty much it for the video, guys. If you guys like this video and like this kind of content, go ahead and hit that like button and let me know in the comments below if this is the kind of stuff you guys like. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. You guys know what that means. If you guys want to subscribe, you can subscribe. And then, of course, other than that, thanks for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.